This is Ralph. He's a fluff ball. This is Tom. He time travels. They're brothers we adopted as rescue kittens, and we've just let them outside for the first ever time. They're not allowed out after dark to keep them safe, and everything had been going perfectly well until last night, when Ralph never came home. Where's Ralph gone? He's not sleeping on his windowsill. Where's Ralph gone? Tom is feeling so alone. We miss his fluffy ears and great big bushy tail.
Ralph, if you can hear this, will you please come home?
And Ralph did come home eventually. Ralphie! It was 6 AM when he just waltzed in, ate a bowl and a half of food, and slept for a day straight. Tom was very relieved, as were we all, but I was also slightly perplexed. Just where exactly had he been? Did he have a second family? But then it would be unlikely he'd be so hungry and tired when he returned home. Did he get shut in someone's shed or garage? We once accidentally locked my old cat Reggie in our garage overnight. We were so mortified that we then put a cat flap in the door to stop it happening again. So that was another option. Was it simply the hot weather? With his enormous fluffy coat, Ralph tends to sleep indoors on these hot summer days, so maybe he wanted to go out and explore all night. Or maybe Ralph was a superhero, a shy, unassuming fluffball by day and a fearless, crime-fighting hero by night. I guess we'd never know where he'd been, but there was a way of finding out in future. This is a GPS tracking device. It's extremely lightweight, waterproof, and clips onto a cat's collar, providing real-time tracking data to your phone or computer. And in the weeks between Ralph's late night adventure and the GPS tracker being delivered, he did it again, twice. Ralph was making a habit of disappearing, and this device would be the key to unlocking his secret life. So let me introduce you to the neighbourhood. We'll call this main road the Green Mile. Off it comes my road, Perdition Road, and from that Snake's Castaway, a short curved road with an alleyway at the end, leading to Big Park. All three roads are lined by a mixture of semi-detached houses and detached bungalows. We live here, right on the corner. Now certain details have been changed or missed out for my privacy, but all the key details are there in some form, and it will sufficiently allow me to display the GPS data accurately, without giving away my location. With that out the way, it was time to begin. I'd be putting the GPS collar on Tom first. I get the impression that he stays a lot closer to home than his brother. He's always been the more social of the two, and really likes company and being around us. He always comes when we call him, and I don't imagine he really goes far. Because of this, I was hoping he'd provide a normal sort of baseline of what to expect. And as predicted, it was really boring. After I put the collar on and he left the house, Tom went and sat beside Punk the guinea pig. The two have become rather close and really seem to enjoy each other's company. I mean, I'm sure Tom would probably try and eat him given the chance, but with the bars in the way, they're the best of friends. He spent about 30 minutes there, came inside for something to eat, then went back out and found a comfy spot in the flower beds, where he slept for 6 whole hours. When he awoke, Tom came in for some more food, and then fell asleep for a further 2 hours on his favourite chair. Both cats went out together about 7 o'clock, where they vanished over the neighbour's fence to the north. Although I couldn't see anything, the GPS data revealed that Tom more or less just stayed still for half an hour. I don't believe it, I think he must be sleeping again. And then it was getting kinda late, so I called the cats in, and both Ralph and Tom came in together for the night. There was nothing unexpected here. Everything Tom had done today I'd physically seen him do before, and he stayed within a very small radius of home. The only real surprise was the sheer amount of time he seemed to spend sleeping. Hey Tom? I would love to be a cat. But tomorrow, Ralph's turn would prove a lot more interesting. Well, admittedly he slept indoors all day, without going outside even once. But then the GPS data shows he went out around 7 PM. Now I immediately had a feeling he was going to pull an all-nighter, so I decided to set up this motion-censored wildlife camera I have, just in case. I aimed it at the cat flap so it would film all the comings and goings throughout the night, if Ralph did indeed stay out. And he did. The first recording came at 7:25 and shows Tom deciding whether or not to come in. I should mention that the camera is a bit weird, in that there's a countdown before it starts filming that you're unable to turn off, during which it takes 3 photos. This means it generally misses a lot of what you actually wanted it to film, which is super annoying. But anyway, Tom decided against coming in, and because Ralph hadn't come home yet, I left the cat flap unlocked, meaning Tom had the option of staying out too. And Tom did stay out, until the next activity on the camera at midnight, when he came in for the night. He came and slept beside me until the morning, although I have no idea where he was for those previous 4.5 hours. Meanwhile, however, Ralph was on one of his adventures. From when he'd initially left at 7, he crossed the road and went into the garden of a bungalow on Castaway. He stayed there for some time. Maybe there's a nice spot to sit, or maybe they have a friendly cat or human. After an hour or so, he looped round the other side of the bungalow and crossed Petition Road again, into our neighbour's garden to the north, where Tom and him had gone yesterday. From here, it was back across the road again, where he skirted the edges of Big Park. There's a narrow but dense strip of woodland here, and Ralph took his time wandering through it. And then it was swiftly back between the bungalows and home. By now it was 3:27 AM, and Ralph came in for a whole 3.5 minutes, presumably for some food, as he was licking his lips when he came out again. He travelled north, heading straight back to where he'd just been on the edge of Big Park. He dipped down slightly and travelled east through some gardens, crossed the alleyway and turned south. Now I'm not really sure what this area is, but Ralph did this rather odd circuit. Maybe he was walking around an obstacle, or maybe he was just exploring, but then it was out onto Castaway before weaving back in the other side of the house. Again, he did a wide loop around these gardens and doubled back on himself, crossing the road to the bungalow from earlier. Ralph stayed here again for quite some time. There's clearly something he likes about this garden, and from here he came home, entering the cat flap at 5:09. But he still wasn't done. 10 minutes later, he left yet again, heading back to his favourite bungalow. After a half hour, he turned around, crossing Petition Road and briefly entering our own garden, before hopping the fence to our neighbours to the north. He spent a few minutes here, and then ventured slightly further north into another garden, before eventually looping around and coming home. He entered the cat flap for good at 7:27, by which time it was daylight, and came and joined Tom and me sleeping. Mystery solved. Sort of. I'm still convinced he's a superhero. But this whole exercise had been fascinating. I'm not a cat behaviourist, so I can't pretend to analyse what any of this information means, whether Ralph was patrolling his territory or just simply exploring and having fun. But it had been really illuminating to see just how different Ralph and Tom are. Tom barely left the garden, whereas Ralph travelled almost 300 metres from home. I'm hoping that maybe in the autumn and winter he'll calm down and stay a bit closer, but at least both cats are going nowhere near the main road. And they're clearly very happy, which is by far the most important thing. Ralph may only be a small cat, but he'd certainly been on a big adventure. Ralph and Tom, they're my favourite little pussycats. Ralph and Tom, they're my favourite little dudes. Ralph has very fluffy ears and Tom's a long cat. They hope you like their videos and subscribe too.